Good morning. Thank you for spending your morning with me. I know how it feels on day two. You feel like you've seen everything just in different colors. I'm going to make the best effort to ensure that you will leave this room with something you haven't heard before. At least one thing. That's my promise to you. And again, thank you for being here. Maybe a few words about myself, Chris Darcy. And before I go into my many titles, let me ask you something personally. In case there's something in here from the insurance industry or banking or selling tickets, you realize my name is lovely. It's Darcy, small d, apostrophe, capital A, but it has a special character inside, SQL injection terrorism. So if one of you would allow me to enter my name once into your systems as it is spelled, I would really appreciate that. That aside, I hold a couple of titles. First and foremost, I'm the Chief Data and AI Officer for E.ON, or as I sometimes refer to it, the Chief Cat Herder. Because as you can imagine, that topic has a lot of enthusiasm and temperament, and everybody wants to be the next hero of cracking the AI code. And I'm trying to bring all that into a certain direction and tame the passion and try to make sure that we're not doing incredibly stupid things. Next to that, I am one of the managing directors of E.ON Digital Technology. What is that? That's the technology headquarter for E.ON. And within there, I'm accountable for technology in-house consulting as well as HR, but also for digital upskilling. So, E.ON, most of you may know about E.ON or not. But let me tell you just a few things about E.ON. First of all, we serve 47 million households with energy, and we're running 1.6 million kilometers of grid and power, gas and power networks, sorry. That's 40 times around the world. Sounds awfully exciting, doesn't it? Well, when I joined the energy industry, I felt equally excited because I thought, that's a very simple industry, isn't it? Because my exposure to this industry was pretty much the wall socket that I'm using every day. I plug in my PC, I plug in my vacuum cleaner. It works. There's probably a couple of cables behind it, but how complex can this world be? Let me tell you, it is incredibly exciting and complex, and I would never change this industry for any other than I have now. Now, let me take you just to start with into the world behind the wall socket. So, welcome. Once you go through the two holes, what's happening there? We are coming from a world that was super deterministic and predictable. You had power plants that could produce exactly the amount of energy that you needed at the time you need it, and you had a distribution grid, which you can imagine like a tree. A big pipe coming out, then it branches out, and it may reach Farmer Müller's farm out there, which only need to milk 20 cows, and that's sufficient energy for that. But it was also built close to the consumption centers, so production was happening close to consumption. Now, one important thing to know is that, and I didn't know that until I joined the industry, that demand and supply within the utilities industry always have to be perfectly in sync. You may have heard about 50 hertz, and you think like, yeah, okay, whether it's 45 or 55, who cares? We do, because the level of tolerance for synchronizing demand and supply is incredibly low. Now, where's the world going? We're moving from this predictable on-demand production, predictable consumption patterns to a world where all of a sudden we now have renewable energy in the system. That's great, but it's highly volatile. When wind blows, you've got energy. When sun shines, you've got energy. That's the first thing. It's no longer that predictable and steerable. Secondly, your production pretty much happens when you don't need the consumption. So all of a sudden, you need to create that asynchronous pattern to now store energy and make it available when you need it. But even worse, we're talking about a physical grid that was built for 100 years. It's copper and aluminum pipes in the ground that served Farmer Müller's farm. But now all of a sudden, Farmer Müller had this gigantic field where he put this massive PV onto it, and all of a sudden he's a manufacturer. At volumes that this grid was never built for, and all of a sudden we have tons of producers everywhere, and the distribution grid is becoming an assembly grid. Again, we're talking physical assets. And literally, we have to transform this grid that was built for 100 years physically within 10 years to triple the capacity. There's no way you can do that purely physically. You have to. As Mark Watney was saying in The Martian, we have to science the shit out of this. So we have to make sure this thing is running at max capacity and it's usable. And just add to the complexity one more thing. We have a trend towards electrification with heat pumps, with e-vehicles. Wow, that's the perfect storm. So for us, the question, do we digitize, doesn't exist. I typically say we're doomed to digitize. The question is not whether we do it, the question is how do we do it? And this is where AI comes into play, and that's now another very important tool in our toolbox. Now, the big risk that we're seeing is everybody's hyped about AI, and when you remember ChatGPT 3.5 came out, wow, the world was in absolute uproar. Nowadays, try to impress anybody with 3.5, good luck with that. But then image generation came and we did great things like this. That's marvelous. And just recently, Google Nano Banana. Who's heard of Google Nano Banana? It's impressive, isn't it? But it's the next big thing. But the problem is, it's all in the range of creating poems for your goldfish. It doesn't move the needle. So the problem is, how do we move the needle? How do we do things that don't just waste energy, but really contribute to our mission? And I would like to take you a bit into Greek mythology, because I promised you maybe you learned something new. Who knows the story of Atalanta? Oh, great. Here it is for you. So Greek mythology, and I apologize already for all the inappropriate stereotypes that this story is using, but it's pretty old, so I dare doing it. So there was this king who had a daughter, and he didn't want a daughter. So what did he do? Of course, he exposed her on a mountain and let nature sort it out. There was a she-bear, and the she-bear adopted Atalanta. And then the story, it's like a story in 3 parts. I'm going to skip the first and the end. The middle part is the important one. But so the she-bear adopted Atalanta, and she grew into a perfect huntress. And she even consulted the oracle and was told, you should never get married. If you get married, that's your undoing. So fast forward, she becomes a famous heroine. And what happens? Her father thinks, oh, she's great now, I want her back. So readopts her as her daughter. Yeah, okay. But now he wants her to get married. And she says, yeah, I know, the oracle told me if I get married, I will go down. So she says, fine, father, I'm happy to get married, but the person needs to win against me in a foot race. And if they don't, they will die. Head chopped off. So there's lots of foot races against Atalanta. Many try, many fail, many heads roll. And then this one guy, Hippomenes, of course, he turns to Aphrodite, goddess of love, asks for help, and Aphrodite says, here are 3 golden apples. Use them wisely, and you will win. So the day of the race comes, they race. She's a good sprinter, he's a good sprinter, so he gets ahead, but she's catching up. What does he do? He picks a golden apple, throws it in front of her. What does she do? She kneels down, admires the apple, he runs ahead again. She realizes he's getting ahead, running again. Second time, he throws a second golden apple, she kneels down again, and the story continues like that. Long story short, in the end, he wins the race, they get married, and of course, the 3rd chapter then is they get turned into lions because they didn't say thank you to Aphrodite. But the middle part is the important piece. What did she do wrong? She got distracted by the golden apples. And that is our biggest risk right now with this AI wave. We're easily getting distracted by golden apples. I don't know about you, but do you have any debates with your teams about, oh no, I can't use GPT-4, why aren't we using GPT-5? No, I can't use Gemini X because we should be using Llama, I can't use Mistral because... I tell you, that's not your biggest problem right now, but it's easy to get distracted by that. So how are we attacking this topic of focus? I'm not here to tell you our hero story. You all need to find your own way to do this, but we have found our way where we put emphasis. First of all, and you heard Kenza say the same thing, we need to put the use cases at the center of what you're doing. We have the big belief that there are no AI projects. Why? If you do AI for the sake of AI, it's useless. Look at your biggest business problems. Look at the things where you have fundamental problems that you couldn't solve so far, and apply AI to those problems. But do it in the context of your real problems. Don't play hammer searching for a nail. That may give you success, but chances are low. So put your use cases at the center. We call this the value generation. And then we have identified 4 areas that we call the value acceleration. The first one is make sure you tame that technology zoo. And there's not one day when you don't wake up in the morning and there's the next MCP and A2A and you name it, and tons. It's rapidly changing by the day. And the risk is if you wait until that market has been gotten sorted out, you're too late. If you move too fast, you may make mistakes. So the important thing is try to tame the beast and apply an approach that gives you reversible decisions, but make sure that you're trying to create a common vector and bring people together behind that common vector. Thirdly, data. And you've heard that before, make sure your data is good. But it's the same as we had with the data mining wave in the 2000s, when all of a sudden data mining came up and you thought you could throw data at a system and it would solve the problems. Who of you knows Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? Of course, no? The magic number is 42, deep thought about it a long time, was totally useless. But that's a data problem underneath. But the one thing I would like you to walk out of this room with is, don't just think about the data you have today. Think about the data you will need tomorrow. Because which processes are missing in your organization today that will generate the data you will need for tomorrow's problem? Because you need to start generating those data points today. That's the next thing, beyond just fixing the base, which is, to me, hygiene and housekeeping. Think about your future data needs. Third, empower your people. And that means take everybody along on the journey. This is not dark arts that are happening somewhere behind closed doors. Make sure everybody feels the opportunity. Take away this, I don't know, everybody's looking for this big headline, this is going to cost 30% of the jobs, and I'm not skeptical at all, because I think the opportunities fundamentally outweigh the opportunities, the downsides. The thing is, take everybody on the journey. Make sure your managers know how to apply it. Make sure you have your own knowledge. And why do I say the own knowledge? Make sure you make yourselves bulletproof against all that marketing BS you sometimes hear. Because I can guarantee there's hundreds, hordes of people knocking at your doors and your colleagues' doors saying, I can fix this for you. What's the latest thing? Agentic AI. Now everything's agentic. Have you realized that? Gen AI is a thing of yesterday. Now everything's agentic. I'm pretty sure next year it's going to be quantum agents or something. Not saying that's bad, but we're digesting one wave of innovation, and now the next wave is knocking at our doors. It's all these promises of, we're going to do it. Yeah, no. Eventually you will. And finally, make sure you ensure for sure safety and compliance. But do it inherently. Make things inherently compliant. And to give you one example, to tie it back, for example, to the common technology, if you want to have scalability of your use cases, create a common platform. Create your prototypes on the common platform, which is safe and secure inherently, and all of a sudden you have scalable prototypes. You don't need to refactor, you don't need to rebuild. Think end-to-end, but move in small steps. So maybe just to talk about what are we doing, we're not new to AI. AI has been something that's been with us for more than a decade, the good old numeric AI, but we're now applying it in many different fields. And I just want to give you a few examples where we're using it. We've got more than 100 of real-life use cases already. So for example, using it to predict congestions in our network, with production coming up and consumption going down. So how do we route the energy that we don't have a traffic jam in the network? We're doing minute-level forecasting of cloud movement to predict how much shadow will be on PVs, to know how much energy output they will have. We're using it to optimize how many people we'll need in call centers for the next day, depending on what's happened the day before. We're using it to optimize customer interfaces. We're using it, for example, to optimize how we load and unload batteries that are attached to our network. We're using it to optimize our health and safety environment, to analyze incidents. We're pulling together data from different sources, asset data together with incident data to find patterns. We're using it to detect visually the content of substations, automatically match that to our asset inventories and correct the inventory based on visual asset data. And I could go on and on and on, but there are tons of things where we're applying it. And again, look for your real-life problems and apply it there. My personal belief is go for a mix of many small successes and some big successes. I'm pretty sure you will be asked by management, what are the 2, 3 big bets? And I think they are important, But in addition, you will have to find tons of small successes moving forward and ensure that you're delivering on the small successes, but always make your business problem the underlying topic to start with. So let me close you by giving you my 6 recommendations to take away and interpret in your own world. Number 1, apply focus. Find a way that you find a universal set of applying focus across your entire corporation universe. It's not going to work if everybody runs with their own priorities. Try to find commonality. And to give you one example from our world, and we're basically divided into 2 major divisions. We got a, if you will, distribution division, and we got a grid division. But they have things in common, and they usually just speak amongst themselves. And we've created a taxonomy which now helps to find common cases, like customer interaction being one pattern that equally applies on both sides of the fence. Secondly, train yourself. Become bulletproof for the hype. You need to know enough to identify when somebody's presenting you the next bluff, just in different colors, or when you're learning something new. You need to identify when you're being sold something that is vaporware or that is doable. And that may be different company by company, but you should know as much as you can to be able to make your own decisions. Don't put your fate into somebody else's hands. Number 3, get your data in order. It's the least sexy topic to talk about data governance. And my recommendation would be, don't approach it from a data governance perspective. Approach it again from the use case perspective. What are you trying to solve? Okay, if you want to solve this, what data will you need? Okay, how good is the data? Okay, it's not good, so what do we do to fix it? But offer the perspective of improvement and not the governance perspective. Nobody wants a police. Be a coach, not a cop. Number 4, tame your technology universe. Find a way to at least wrap your arms around what's happening in technology. There's no way you can set standards that will last for years at this point. But my recommendation would be to create reversible decisions. Try things out, learn, grow, but also have the guts to sometimes say no if something is highly redundant with something else, because you will not be able to tame that zoo in the end. And for me, one of the big success factors going forward will be the interoperability. And to make that tangible in one example, think about the agentic wave now. There's 2 big risks that I see with the agentic wave. One is a flooding of endpoints. Your poor users will be confronted with 150 different front ends to interact with the systems. Push your vendors to drive for convergence of endpoints. There must be one way to meta-integrate all these endpoints, because eventually you want your Jarvis in the pocket. You don't want 50 Jarvis living in your pocket. That's one thing. The second thing is interoperability of the agent force. How do you create transparency about all the agents in your organization, which will be a mix of homegrown and third-party provided? You need transparency what's there. These agents will have incredible power to operate in your environment. They will have the keys to the kingdom. You want to know who's running around. And they have to talk to each other, and they have to interoperate. That's the minimum things you have to ensure. And the rest, let it run, but set the standards. Number 5, take your people on the journey. Again, don't make this black art. And it's not just the people that are involved in executing these use cases. It's the people that are experiencing the outcomes of those use cases. Make everybody your ally. And to give you one example, again from E.ON, we have very early worked with our Group Workers' Council, and we've created a joint mission together with co-determination where we want to go. We set the rules of the road right at the beginning, because we think this only can happen if we do it hand in hand with management, with the people, with co-determination. We need to move in one direction. If there is an issue, let's talk about it now, and let's not run blindly into the wall. And finally, think about measuring value. Inevitably, the question will come up, we're spending all that money, what are we getting in return? My recommendation here would be measure value in the context of a project. As I said earlier, I don't think there are AI projects. There are projects with AI components. AI is a tool within the context of a project. So measure the value of your project. For me, the question, what's the value of AI in this project, is a bit like measuring the value of the chairs in this room. Of course, they have a value to this conference. But would I measure that individual contribution? I wouldn't. But I would measure the outcome of the total session. So find ways to at least assess where did you move the needle, which process parameters did you modify, so you can contribute to a fair value discussion, because you will not get away with not answering that. So think about what can you establish jointly with your business partners how you can make benefit tangible. And with that, I close on time. I thank you for your attention. There's no time for questions, but if you want to reach me, that's one way. No sales pitches, please. But thank you for your attention.